So I think we stopped at the female reproductive organs in the last class, right? And we finished something with sperm as a cell and structure, and then went to female reproductive system. Okay,
Yes,
so let's quickly quickly go through. Would like to give a quick recap?
Yes, sure.
And if you have doubts also, you can ask
Okay.
during the recap. Yeah.
Yeah. So last class we continued studying in detail about sperm. So firstly, sperm rely on fructose. Fructose is the major source of energy, but not glucose. Fructose is released from the seminal vesicles. There are about 200 to 300 millions of sperm released per ejaculation, and also there are disorders related to this where the male is unable to produce sperms called as oligospermia.
Yeah, no. Oligospermia is where the male produces less than like required, so less than 50% of this. So
Okay.
remember, I told you that this 200 to 300 is a huge number, but all of them are not equally motile or viable. So even if 60% of this is motile and 40% of this is viable, then there are high chances of fertilization. So if a male is already producing, let's say 50 million or 30 million, that's it. It's still a huge number, but out of that 30 million, again, there'll be just 60 to or less than that motile and even less than that viable. So that drastically reduces the chance of fertilization. So in that case, that disorder where the male is producing sperm but not enough to fertilize or to go through to find through that whole tract of female is called oligospermia. Oligo means small, less, just few. And oligospermia can be where there is only hundreds or thousands of sperms to few millions. But if the male is not producing any sperm at all, it's called azoospermia. Azoospermia. The name itself is explanatory. Azo means no animal sperm. The zoo word comes from zoology, is study of animals, just like forestation, afforestation, right? So A means no animal sperm is like available in that semen. So azoospermia. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Then the head of the sperm, which is also called as acrosome, consists of hydrolytic enzyme called as hyaluronidase, and
That's one
this,
of the enzyme.
yeah, one
Yeah.
of the enzyme, and this enzyme will help the sperm to penetrate inside the ovum, because the ovum consists of multiple layers which the sperm has to cross, and finally it comes in contact with the plasma membrane, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then out of 100% of sperm, 60% of sperms should have a good motility, or else the chances of fertilizing ovum decreases. Another thing is viability or functionality. That means firstly it should be able to reach the ovum fast, and secondly it should be able to penetrate through the ovum. At least
Right.
40% of sperms should be viable.
Good
Then we
viability, which means they have good acrosome. Yeah.
Yes. Then we came to the female reproductive system. To begin with the right side, there is the vertebral column, and in the last bone, which is called as coccyx. Ventral to the vertebral column, there are three openings. One of them is the anal opening. At the bottom, we have the vaginal orifice, which has two openings: uterus and urinary bladder. There's an opening there's an opening portion at the bottom of the uterus, which is called as the cervix, and from here the vaginal canal begins.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention in the last class, it's not important for boards, but for entrances. So cervix is kind of a gateway to uterus during pregnancy. So there is a very obvious question. So uh, what happens during pregnancy? So if a female is pregnant already, which means the female has conceived and there is an implantation, in the few initial months, the female may or may not know that she is pregnant. And during that month, if the female undergoes sexual coitus, and if the male sperms are present in the female tract, will they still be able to enter? And because the female now is not, let's say in the first month, once pregnancy begins, the menstrual cycle disappears. There's no menstrual cycle. So that is one way to see if a sexually active female or a married female may be pregnant. That's first of the signs. But during pregnancy, nothing should enter in the uterus, and you can understand why, because uterus is now a very, very important space for the development of embryo, correct? So this cervix basically, yeah, thank you so much, good to see you. So this cervix kind of gets clogged. So there is some secretion from the female that clogs or locks the cervix. The cervix becomes inaccessible. So even after a female has conceived, even if there are sperms in the tract, they will not be able to cross cervix and go inside. Okay, so that's why it's the gateway. Yeah, they will only stay in the vaginal canal. Yeah, continue.
Okay, then cervix plus vaginal canal is also called as the birth canal. Now there's a separate opening for the urine, the urethra. In total, there are 3 openings in which 2 of them share common orifice with the presence of 2 kinds of tissues called as labium minora and labium majora.
Yeah, they are protective tissues.
Protective tissue, exactly. At the beginning of the vaginal orifice, there is a tissue called as clitoris. It is equivalent to male penis, and it contains the same kind of erectile tissues that male consist. Okay, and on the ventral side towards the abdomen consists of pubic symphysis, also called as pubic mons, which protects the urinary bladder, the uterus, and also provide cushion to the baby. Then we looked,
pregnancy. Yeah.
Yes. Then we looked into the female reproductive organ. So the primary sexual organ in female is ovary. There are they are in pair, dual organ, and it produces gamete called as ovum or oocyte, and hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Ovaries are attached with the help of mesenteries. Ovaries lay secondary oocyte, and they are haploid. Similarly, primary oocyte are also haploid. Fallopian tube, also called as the oviduct, and it has got 4 major parts. First is the fimbriae that are situated near the ovary but never touch the ovary. They are finger-like projection and they catch the oocyte, and then it enters the infundibulum. After that, it enters ampulla. Ampulla is the widest part of the fallopian tube, and then it enters to isthmus. And this junction where the ampulla ends and the isthmus begins is what we call as ampulla isthmus junction. And this is the site of fertilization in humans, right?
Correct. Ampulla isthmus junction is the site of fertilization.
Yeah,
yes,
and
so
from
Rabia,
this,
yeah, just 1 second.
sure.
So Rabia has joined in. Good evening, Rabia.
Good evening, sir.
Are you keeping well? You missed, I think, last 2 classes.
Yes, I'm fine.
Start to get worried that if you're not well. Okay, so try not to miss classes, Rabia. And because this is beginning, so you can still easily cover up. I'll be there, but it will become difficult over time if you miss classes. Okay, try not to as much as you can.
Okay, sir, sorry.
Yeah, no issues. Like, it's for you, because we can always, in 12th we have less chapters, and even from that few are deleted. So the point is, and we have same amount of time, but and also what I do is I keep 11th parallel with 12th, because just after 12th you have to give entrances, right? You both will be giving entrance. So it's not like we have less chapters and more time. In that extra time, we are going to prepare for, deeper and complex concepts. So that's why. Okay, nothing. So but I received your assignment, Rabia, one of it, and I checked. It's very good. You are very good with diagrams, and it's a good thing. So you should practice diagrams, like, I should not say in your free time. Your free time is for your fun thing, but when you're studying, practice diagrams. Okay, Rabia, do you have any doubts from the part that you were present in?
No, sir, not really.
Okay, so I think, so we are on female reproductive system. Okay, and Hiram is almost done giving a summary, and so we'll figure out at the end of the class how we can cover up the part that you missed. Okay, so just start from here today. Is that okay, Rabia?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yes, Iram. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and from this we understand that ovum has to travel a short journey, whereas it is a really long journey for the sperm, and this is the reason why millions of sperms are produced per ejaculation. Now at the bottom we have the uterus. It has got three layers. Inner layer is called as endometrium, middle layer called as myometrium, and the outer layer called as perimetrium. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, and on the top there is this uterine fundus. Okay, so uterine fundus is mostly the region where most implantations happen. So in the wall, either here, here, or here. When from any side when the ovum. So you can now understand. So just for Rabia, I'm repeating this. So Rabia, do you see this ampulla isthmus junction I have marked? I'm using this red color. So this region, ampulla isthmus junction in the fallopian tube, is the site of fertilization. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
So if this is the site of fertilization in humans, by the time the ovum enters the uterus, it is already fertilized, and now it will not be called a ovum, it will be called a zygote or an embryo, right? So this zygote, an embryo, now have to implant, embed in one of the walls of uterus. Now it doesn't happen very low like here. More chances are it will happen somewhere here only, because it will just enter and get embedded. Okay, cool. And other thing is, the uterus itself has three major layers. Outermost is innermost is endometrium. Endo means inner, metrium means layer, myometrium means the muscular layer, which is the middle one, and perimetrium is the outermost. So uterine fundus and uterine cavity, just remember, because these things are not very important, but sometimes what boards do, they just give you this diagram and this labeling will be there and it will be like A. So you have to figure out what is A, right? So just know the labels of your NCERT at least. And then this is the cervix. So you can say that cervix is very clearly shown here. So cervix is from this to this, like a small canal. This is called cervical canal, just cervical canal, because vagina has yet not started. So the cervical canal plus the vaginal canal together forms the birth canal, like I was telling you. Okay, and this, you can see that the cervix region is very narrow, right, as compared to the vaginal canal. And this narrow region helps it to lock itself and unlock itself during pregnancy, right? So during pregnancy, it clogs and locks itself so that no more sperms can enter once there is a pregnancy ongoing. Okay, great. So I think this is where we kind of ended, right? Yeah. Okay, so in today's class, we'll quickly go with hormonal regulation. So write down the same question: how is the reproductive system in? Yes,
So like so after after the endometrium there is a space, a V space. What is that space called? You can see in the figure.
This one.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
The
all
whole.
uterine. Yeah, this is all uterine cavity. This is the empty space. So uterus is empty. It's like a balloon structure. Most of the time, it's not useful. Like it's not in use. It's useful, sorry, but it's not in use. So what happens is it stays a little constricted. Only when the baby fetus will implant and starts to develop, now it will start, inflating as a balloon. So this is the cavity. Okay. So that's why I'm saying these labels are important. They might put the label here, but still it's the uterine cavity. Okay.
So the ovum comes after fertilization. It comes to the uterine cavity, right?
Yes. So here is fertilization happening. Then it has to travel this thing after fertilization and come here and get implanted in one of the walls.
Okay.
Okay. And this is where it develops. So basically, if you imagine a baby, it's like a baby is embedded half inside the mother's wall in the beginning. Then it starts growing and starts coming out, but still there is placenta, which is about which I will teach you. So placenta is the junction between the baby's tissues and the mother's tissues. It's like an interdigit connection. So we'll talk about that later on. Yeah, but that's uterine cavity. Okay, so write down the question: how is female reproductive system regulated? The answer is there is a hormonal regulation, just like there was in case of males. And the hormones are pretty same. So everything here also starts with hypothalamus. The same story. So this hypothalamus secretes GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? You have already know the full form of it. This GnRH goes and signals the pituitary gland, and because it's a releasing hormone, it gives pituitary positive signals to release gonadotropins. Now this pituitary gland will release gonadotropins, which are the hormones from pituitary, and they are the same as of they are in the male. So there are two basically, FSH and LH. The name fits better in female system because FSH stands for follicular stimulating hormone, and ovum has follicles around it. LH is luteinizing hormone, to luteinize, like to release of the ovum. So FSH starts oogenesis, not starts, but completes. I'll tell you why I'm saying this later on, but it completes oogenesis. Even some textbooks write start because they're not paying much attention to the fact that in females, oogenesis begins when the baby is already in the embryonic stage. Okay, do you understand that? So when the female child as a fetus is inside her mother's womb, and when the ovaries are developing, during the same time, the oogenesis also begins. So FSH is not required for initiation of oogenesis technically, whereas in case of males, FSH is required for initiation of spermatogenesis only, right? Then later on, testosterone maintains spermatogenesis. The difference in female system is that it can happen in the embryonic stage. It initiates, then gets arrested, because to complete you need FSH. So it gets arrested at birth. We will go through this in a minute, but just remember FSH is important for oogenesis. LH, just like LH was there responsible for formation of or secretion of androgens, here LH is responsible for secretion of ovarian hormones or gynogens. So LH ovarian hormones. So it tells the ovary to secrete ovarian hormones, and there are two ovarian hormones which are important. There was only one major male hormone, testosterone. In case of females, it is two, which is estrogen and progesterone. Okay, estrogen and progesterone. Now, estrogen and progesterone, in males, testosterone had two jobs: go back and tell the testes, the Leydig cells, the Sertoli cells, to keep producing more and more sperms to maintain spermatogenesis. And second function was to regulate or modulate the male secondary sexual characters. Here also, estrogen and progesterone both are important for female secondary sexual characters. Okay, and so they have two functions. One is to maintain or to form female secondary sexual characters. So what are secondary sexual characters in females? Let's list them out so that we are done. Yeah, female sexual characters, secondary sexual characters, sorry. So the voice becomes high pitched because no Adam's apple protrusion is there. So they have females after reaching puberty. So this is where puberty is hit, right? when estrogen and progesterone starts forming, female undergoes puberty. And you should also remember, then in case of females, so this is the symbol for female in biology, okay? And this is a symbol for male in biology. So in case of females, I'm talking about when does puberty reaches or hits. So in case of females, it can reach, the average age is around 11 years, but it can also happen between 9 to 11. So it's receding. We are seeing a trend that females are getting mature very early on these days. We don't know if it's good or bad. Mostly it's bad, because you become sexually mature, which means you are able to now conceive, but your body is not physically ready to hold, nourish a baby, right? Because you yourself, a 9 or 10-year-old girl, is herself a baby, kind of, right? So the thing is, sexual maturity in humans, because of the kind of environment we live in, which is very, very protected, we don't have stressors. Most of humans, I should not say none of us, we are blessed that we live in a safe society, in a good civilized environment, but we are not under constant threat from nature. Humans are under constant threat from other humans in the name of race, religion, country, etc., etc. But we are not in a constant threat from other animals. For example, like we are living in the same region where lions and tigers are living, so we have to be very careful to find food and all. That way we are secure. So natural pressures are less. And on top of it, females are reaching sexual maturity faster. So their body also have to pick up the pace to develop faster. So it happens around 11 years. Okay, so, and in males, puberty reaches around 13 years. This is the average. So you can see that on an average, females reach puberty a couple of years faster than males, right? And males reach puberty later on. So high-pitched voice is one characteristic. It's also called shrill voice. Second is, as I told you, the body also have to pick up and be ready for sexual maturity and pregnancy. So one of the features of pregnancy, or to be preparing for pregnancy, is development of the hip girdle. So there are two girdles in our body. Girdles are like kind of big. So this is a girdle, okay? So protected by bones on all sides, and in the center there will be a cavity. One is the shoulder girdle, right? When a baby is born, the shoulder is the widest part of the baby, right? And if shoulder can pass through something, the whole body can pass through that thing, right? For a baby. So, and the shoulder of the baby even is it's not very, very thin, right? The head is small, but the shoulder are big. So shoulder gets stuck. So the hip girdle of the female should be broad enough to allow the shoulder girdle of the baby to come through. Okay, that's why babies during normal delivery are always preferred, and the delivery happens with head coming first. It's never that you pull the leg. Even if the baby has the leg towards the vaginal canal, that baby can't be delivered. It's said that the baby is not oriented properly. In that condition, there are two options: either to go for a C-sec, cut it and take out the baby, or you try to move the baby and bring the head downwards, which is a little painful process during that time. And when I teach students human reproduction, I always tell them, because biology is not just about learning some facts, and writing an exam and getting some marks. It's also to realize how beautiful and how grateful we should be for this beautiful setup that evolved as a life. Females, mothers, cannot be given any painkillers during delivery, because that might affect the child during delivery, because the mother's circulatory system, these drugs can pass on to the baby circulatory system and it can harm. So she cannot be given any painkiller. Plus the pain is I cannot even imagine, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I am sure that it's somewhere around 11 or 10 only. And so there is a pain index that people try to build and understand. There are various kinds of pain. Okay, so the most dreadful pain a human can suffer is when there is a burning. So when skin burns and it peels off because of that burning, that is huge pain. After that, it's like when your femur bone, which is the thigh bone, breaks, or there's a fracture in the femur bone. Okay, and then you try to stand up because whole body's weight is on the femur and the femur is broken, and the pain that you feel is huge. So there was this one index that tried to figure out what is the amount of pain, quality of pain that a female has to go through during labor. So it's somewhere equivalent to a normal human breaking the femur plus 4 to 6 ribs at the same time. So 6 ribs plus your thigh bone breaking at the same time is the amount of pain that females, mothers go through. Now it's obvious that this amount of pain can be deadly also, right? Our brain can go into shock and humans can die because of pain. It happens. All the road sudden accidents where human bodies just collapse is because of sudden pain. So that amount of pain brain cannot process, and brain just shuts off, and it's a sudden shock death. So pain can also kill, and many women who are malnourished or who does not have normal physiology while childbirth, they do die because of the pain. But now because of medical assistance, those kind of deaths are can be prevented. But apart from that, apart from medical assistance, our biology, like female body's biology, also helps them. So there is a hormone called oxytocin, which I'll be teaching you about in fetal ejection reflex, that helps a lot to sustain pain and help relax the muscles of the uterus and the vaginal canal. Okay, otherwise it's difficult. So now one of the secondary sexual character is widening of the hip girdle. Okay, so female, once they reach puberty, their hip girdle starts to widen up, broader than their shoulder girdles. And also another amazing thing in biology is the hip bones. If you look at the structure of the hip bones, they are attached at the bottom. In males, these two bones are fused together. It acts like one bone because the bones are fused together. In females, this bone at the bottom is not fused together. It is just at a distance, and it is connected through cartilages. And you can understand why. Because during childbirth, this hip girdle will go like this to allow the baby to pass. So it's like this at the moment, and then it has to go like this. So if it is fused, it can't, open. But cartilage can break. So there is breaking of cartilage, and then it opens, the baby comes out, and it goes back, and then there is healing of that cartilage that happens. Okay, so that's why female hip girdles are slightly different from male hip girdles. That is one way. If you find a skeleton, you can just look at the skeleton and say that if it's a female skeleton or a male skeleton. I was always puzzled that when they dig out skeletons, they say that, oh, this is a female skeleton. So there are many markers in the skeleton itself that can tell you that if it is a female or a male skeleton. Okay, one of it is look at the hip girdle bone, and you can tell if it's a female skeleton or a male skeleton. Okay, and also just to focus on this point, in the wake of our I should not say malnutrition, but I should say misnutrition. Women these days are not getting proper nutrition. They are living in constant pollutions, stress, and that's all is not helping them, because hip girdles are becoming narrower and narrower in females over time. So if you see in the last 60 years, more females are now leaner with narrower hip girdle, even in their 20s and 30s. And that makes natural delivery difficult. So they're left with only one option, to go for cesarean section, because doctors say that it's not happening, baby cannot come out, the hip girdle is very narrow, so we have to go through cesarean. If this continues, there are just thoughts. So in future, is it like a regressive evolution where we are too many, just 8 billion humans on the planet, so Is it a regressive evolution that going further, females will be able to deliver less and less kids? Because if you are delivering kids naturally, you can deliver as many as 6, 7 kids, because you see old people are your nannies and dadis. They used to have lots of kids, but our mothers and other aunts, bua, etc., relatively they have less kids, not because also family planning is one thing, but also their physiology is changing. So widening of hip girdle is important secondary sexual character for childbirth. Apart from that, development of mammary glands. Okay, this is important. So just development, the synthesis of milk, human milk, which is called colostrum. You can write down the spelling. Human milk is called colostrum. Okay, it is a thick yellowish fluid. It's very thick. It's thicker than the cow or the buffalo milk or the goat milk or the camel milk that people drink. Generally, it's very thick. It's full of nutrition. It's, I think, the most nutritive milk in the animal kingdom. I should not say most, but most nutritive for humans, right? The kind of nutrition human needs. So mammary gland starts developing, but no synthesis of milk has yet occurred in a teenage females mammary glands. And the word mammal comes from this mammary gland. All mammals have mammary glands. That's why they are called mammals. So there is no mammal that does not have mammary glands. Other characteristics of being a mammal, this is from class 11. So that's where I said I will keep going back to your class 11th and teasing things out. Okay, so just bear with me. I hope you both are okay with this, because this class should be like a discussion, not just. So mammals, there are characteristics like when we read mammals, one is mammary gland, second is presence of hair on the body, third is that they should have jaws, fourth is they should lay eggs. Only one is consistent, that is they have mammary glands throughout. For jaws, for hair, and for giving birth to babies, there are exceptions. There is a mammal called duck-billed platypus that has a beak like a duck. It lays eggs, but it is a mammal because it has mammary glands. Okay. There are other mammals like whales that have lost body hair, most of it. So they don't have body hairs, kind of, but they still have mammary glands. Okay, is that clear? So mammary gland is a crucial thing that has no exception. So development of mammary gland happened because of estrogen and progesterone. And anything else? Any other secondary sexual character? Widening of hip girdle, development of mammary gland. Yes,
Menstrual cycle begins.
Menstrual cycle begins. Perfect. Menstrual cycle begins. The first menstrual cycle that the female goes through when she reaches puberty is called menarche. The name is given menarche, the first one. And by the time a female reaches 50s, so between 45 to 50, in some cases 52, this cycle stops. And that phase is called menopause. Pause means stop. Okay, I think pause is a good word. Meno full stop would have sound good. So menopause and menarche. Now, another thing to see here, and it's very crucial, is females have a beginning of reproductive phase. Males also have a beginning of reproductive phase that is called puberty. But females also have an end of reproductive phase. So a female who's older than 50, 55 years won't be able to conceive a child, or won't be able to deliver a child, or won't be able to have menstrual cycle. But a male starts producing sperm after puberty and continues producing sperm till death, unless and until he has some disorders that like azoospermia or something. Okay. Why do you think females have a limited reproductive phase? Think about it in biology. See, biology is very, very intelligent. It has evolved in millions of years to take care and make the best organism that can adapt and survive. Okay. So why do you think females have a fixed reproductive cycle age and males do not? Let me give you a hint. Menstrual cycle. Think about it. Rabia, any idea? That's where I teach students to respect genders and respect male and female bodies for the exclusive specialities that they have. Okay. Female body after menarche loses blood every month. And it's not like few drops of blood. It's lots of blood, somewhere around 100 cubic centimeters to around 400 cubic centimeters of blood is lost, because a continuous bleeding phase is there for 3 to 5 days. In some females it can even be up to 6 to 7 days. Now that much amount of blood lost also needs to be reinstated back, reformed back, right? That can be done when the female is young, in 20s, 30s, 40s, but still it requires a lot of energy and it takes a toll on the body. Menstruating females in most of the developing countries are always anemic. So they are called, it's called menstrual anemia, because they have lost so much of blood and RBCs with it that their hemoglobin carrying capacity is always lower than males or non-menstruating females. But when the female grows old, I think you now can appreciate it becomes very difficult. Imagine a 60-year-old female who's very old, bones are old, body is old, organs are old, and still losing around 300 cubic centimeters of blood. Do you think it's going to be good for the body? No, she cannot recover back from it. So at a very apt stage, this stops. Okay, menstrual cycle stops, and that's important. Males don't have to lose anything, just the sperms. Forming sperms also take energy, but it comes with the behavior also. A 60, 70, 80-year-old male won't be actively involved in the process of sexual act. So anyways, he's not losing much as energy from the body. Cool. So menstrual cycle begins. Anything else? Anything else that happens?
The pubic hair.
Yes, that's pubic hair is common for both males and females. Pubic hair grows. So there are two different kind of hair in our body. One is that we have right from birth, and one is called facial hair that only males typically have. So apart from the eyebrows and eyelashes, mustache and beard only males have. Though there can be certain disorders due to which even females can grow a mustache and beard, but not to that extent. Males can grow because it requires testosterone in high quantity. But pubic hairs are something that only develops after puberty in both males and females. Also, just to tell you, height shoots up. Okay. So there is a dramatic increase in height in when kids reach puberty, both male and female. And also their sweat and sebaceous gland. You know what is sweat and sebaceous gland? Sebaceous gland is also called oil gland. So sweat and oil glands become active, more active. Okay. So these are all the changes that happen, which are secondary sexual characters in females. If I missed anything, I don't think I missed. Okay, cool. The second thing that estrogen and progesterone do is, because these are ovarian hormones, right? Correct? These ovarian hormones go and act on uterus. See, hormones are messengers. Very simple to remember. What gets released from hypothalamus acts on pituitary, tells it to release or inhibit something. What gets released from pituitary acts on ovaries or testes, tells them to do something. What gets released from ovaries in females acts on uterus. It goes and acts on uterus and tell the uterus to start secreting something. And as a result of estrogen and progesterone acting on uterus, uterus starts secreting uterine hormones. So write down. Acts on uterus and uterine hormones are secreted. Anyone know what is a uterine hormone? Uterine hormones. No? Okay, we'll talk about it when I'll just in a moment. I think you know, but I'll just walk you through so that you can give me the answer. Okay. So uterus only secretes certain things when it conceives, when there is pregnancy. Okay, so we leave that for pregnancy part. Okay, and this is a regulation till now. Starts with hypothalamus, pituitary, and gonadotropins go and act on ovaries. Ovaries release estrogen, progesterone. It goes and act on uterus. Is that clear? Any doubt till here? No. Okay, perfect. Now, before we go to pregnancy, let's talk about the process of fertilization itself. So now we have studied both male and female organs, their regulation, anatomy, physiology, functioning at all. Oh, no. Before fertilization, sorry. Let's do oogenesis. Sorry. We have not yet studied oogenesis, right? We studied spermatogenesis, but what is oogenesis? Now, it is slightly different from spermatogenesis. The concepts are same, so pay attention. This is what we'll spend some time on. Oogenesis, as I told you, begins not at puberty. It begins in the embryonic stage. And so there are again PGCs, primordial germ cells to begin with. Okay. And these primordial germ cells form oogonia or oogonium, just like spermatogonium. Spermatogonia. Keep making parallels. PGCs make spermatogonial cells. Here there is oogonium or oogonia, plural. Okay. And this oogonia undergoes, so here also it's mitotic division. Mitosis is happening just like in males. Oogonium also undergoes mitosis. Mitotic division. And what will oogonia form? What did spermatogonia form? Spermatogonium formed primary spermatocytes, remember? So oogonium will form primary oocytes. Okay, and this again happens through mitosis. Now these primary oocytes for the first time undergoes meiosis, right? Remember, primary spermatocytes were the first cell to undergo meiosis. So also let's keep writing there. PGCs are diploid to N, oogonium are diploid to N, primary spermatocytes are again diploid to N. And for the first time, they will show meiotic division, meiosis, so meiotic division. But they will only show M1, meiotic division 1, and that also not complete. So at meiotic division, remember prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase of the M phase of meiosis, class 10th cell cycle chapter. So N1 begins, but all these primary oocytes gets arrested at prophase 1. The first phase of the first meiosis cycle. They gets arrested. The moment they get into meiosis, they get arrested. And they stay arrested. So all of this from PGCs to here is happening during the embryonic stage. Remember that this from spermatogonium onwards, everything starts after puberty in males. But in females, it is already happening in the embryonic stage. Now, this brings us to one question that was asked in AIMS and NEET both. So the oocyte from which you are born, where was that formed? Option is, so the option is your grandmother's, maternal grandmother's body, your father's body, your maternal grandfather's body, or none of the above? So you will think none of the above because my mother is not in the option, right? Because it should have been formed in my mother's body, cannot form in my grandfather or father's body. And maternal grandmother, I don't know. But technically that's the correct answer. The oocyte from which I was born, was formed in my maternal grandmother's body when my maternal grandmother, my nanny, was pregnant and my mother was in my nanny's womb. Then my mother's ovaries were developing and they formed these primary oocytes and were arrested there. Okay, do you understand, Rabia and Iram both?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So just note this down. It's an interesting thing to remember. So it gets arrested. So here onward, it's an arrest. And then happens birth. So when a female baby is born, she's born with lots and lots of primary oocytes arrested at prophase 1. Okay. So at that time, there is a phase which is called atresia. Atresia is the phase before birth and after birth till puberty, where no new primary oocyte is formed. So in a way, everything that female uses after sexual maturity was formed in its embryonic stage. No new primary oocyte is formed or synthesized after birth. Okay, but instead only degeneration happens. So each ovary at the time of birth or before birth contains around 3 lakh to 3.5 lakh primary oocytes. Okay, at the time of birth, write down atresia. What is atresia? Write down. Atresia is constant degeneration of primary oocytes. Atresia is the phase of constant degeneration of primary oocytes before and around birth. Before and around birth. Okay. So arrested and now degradation. Now you will think this doesn't make sense. Why did you make all these oocytes when you just have to kill them? Because female system made way too much than required. At the time of birth, write down, at the time of birth, each ovary contains around 80,000. 60,000 to 80,000 is a number. The NCERT says that, but slightly, yeah, 60,000 to 80,000 primary oocytes arrested at prophase 1. Is that clear? Now, if you are thinking that from millions, just 80,000 are left, don't worry. Let's do a simple maths. Let's imagine a female that reaches puberty at the age 10 and reaches menopause at the age 50. Okay. How many years of sexual phase? Sexually active phase? From 10 to 50, 40 years. So 40 years, ovaries will constantly release ovum. Now, each month, on an average, normally, only one ovary releases ovum and a single ovum. Make sense? So if one ovum is released from one ovary each month, so in a year, from each ovary, under normal physiology, how many ovum should be released?
Like both the ovaries or each ovary?
Each
A single
ovary.
ovary.
Single ovary.
6.
Perfect, right answer. So in a year, one ovary only has to release 6 ovums. Correct? Together they release 12 ovums, right? So for 40 years, 12 into 40. How many?
480.
480. So from each ovary, 240. Okay. Let's take a margin of error and I give 60 extra. Even if there are 60 extra that each ovary will release during this 40 years. So 300. Right? Not more than 300 ovums will be released in the entire reproductive age of the female from each ovary. And each ovary contains around 80,000. Still, it's much more than required. Okay, 80,000 and these 80,000 are primary oocytes. They will divide and form secondary oocytes. So even more, one primary oocyte will form 2 secondary oocytes. So you see, biology is more than enough for what is required at any given time. And that's true for everything. You know, when a human dies, it's not like everything from the body is exhausted. The blood has lots of glucose left. The lungs have lots of oxygen left. The brain has oxygen left. The liver has glycogen left. Our fat tissues have lipids left. Everything is there in abundance, and still the human body dies because of aging and other related. Even if nothing, if the person has no illness, which is not possible in an old age, because aging brings disorder in certain organs, but still, if all are manageable and there is a natural death in sleep, still the body will have lots of nutrition in it when it dies. Okay, so there's plenty for biology. That's the beauty of it. But still, we'll not be able to master it. We can just study it. We can heal, treat, cure, help, find new things, make new drugs. It's a constant fight between nature, what nature has, like bacteria, viruses, pathogens, and humans, right? And because human as a race, as a species, has this ability to learn, educate, find, become researchers, doctors, like both of you will be becoming, inshallah, in future, and heal people and figure out things for them. Anyway, so atresia is a huge degradation, but still, let's say, write down, there are around 80,000 ovum primary oocytes left. Also, just write down these facts that each ovary does not release in any case more than 250 to 300 ovum in the entire reproductive phase. Okay. Perfect. Now, then from birth till puberty. So this is the, let's say, this is where it reaches puberty. So in puberty, this prophase 1 arrested oocyte is still there. So this primary oocyte, okay, which is arrested at prophase 1, again gets stimulated one at a time. So one is selected out of that 80,000 pool, and it will be stimulated by which hormone? Quickly. Which hormone will stimulate this cycle completion? FSH.
FSH.
Yes, Rabia won by just a millisecond. Okay, FSH, follicle stimulating hormones, because these primary oocytes are present in a covering called primary follicle. They develop around themselves primary follicle, and that follicle is stimulated by follicle stimulating hormone FSH, and this primary oocyte then for the first time undergoes, it completes meiosis 1 and it forms, from each primary oocyte there is 2 secondary oocytes. Okay, is it clear? But remember, now secondary oocyte for the first time is a haploid cell. This secondary oocyte does not complete meiosis 2 in the ovary. Write down. secondary oocyte does not completes meiosis II in the ovary. And also, to complicate things a little bit, let me tell you here that primary oocyte will divide to form two things. One will become secondary oocyte. Only one cell will become secondary oocyte, which is haploid. The other cell does not become a oocyte. It is called unequal division, and the other cell becomes a polar body. Now, what the heck is a polar body? It's called the first polar body. It's also haploid. Now, look at the female system, how brilliant it is. It knows that at the end, only one cell will be released. But the problem with meiosis is when you start with one mother cell, which is primary oocyte, which is oogonium, by the time you will complete meiosis I, there will be two daughter cells. And then you complete meiosis II, which is one cycle of meiosis, there will be 4 daughter cells. But you cannot afford to release 4 ovum at the same time. That ensures that you are going to have 4 babies, right? That's not how it works. So from when primary oocyte completes meiosis I, one become a secondary oocyte. This is a bigger cell, write down. Secondary oocyte is a big cell with cytoplasm and half, not half, let's say 1 copy of genome. Don't write half the number of chromosomes. I personally don't like this term. So 1 copy of genome, N, haploid, and it has lots of cytoplasm. It's a big cell. In fact, secondary oocyte is the biggest cell that can exist in a human body. Okay, no cell is bigger than that. And the second cell becomes degenerated and very small and becomes a polar body. It only contains a nucleus and contains 1 copy of the genome that is to be discarded. Very little or almost no cytoplasm is there. So it's like a dot. Okay, so one is big, one is very small. That's called unequal meiosis division. Okay, then this degenerates. Okay, write down, first polar body degenerates in the ovary. This secondary oocyte is the one that is released from ovary. Released from ovary on the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. Now you must be thinking, wait, this is not a complete cell. Why are you releasing it? Because this gets released, this gets captured by infundibulum, goes to ampulla isthmus junction, all the way it is just a secondary oocyte. Then sperm comes, sperm successfully drills through the layers, and when sperm for the first time touches the membrane of the secondary oocyte, that initiates the signal to complete meiosis II. And that is where secondary oocyte becomes a true ovum. How romantic that is, biologically very romantic. Unless and until sperm will find the ovum, it's like the Romeo coming to the Juliet, finding the Juliet, touching the Juliet for the first time, and then Juliet is like all happy and complete. So that's where meiosis II completes and it becomes an ovum. So the term ovum does not apply till it is in the ovary. So many books write that ovum is released by ovary, ovum is released on day 14. That's a wrong misinformation. Secondary oocyte is released by ovaries. It is only formed ovum, it only becomes ovum, and meiosis II only completes in the fallopian tube or the oviduct. Is that clear, Rabia and Neelam? These details are necessary for your entrance. Okay, so just understand it like a story of Romeo called sperm and a Juliet called secondary oocyte, waiting to be ovum once sperm finds it. Okay, so I will dictate and we'll complete this in the next class, and we'll directly go to the process of fertilization, implantation, and what happens next. So that's another beautiful story for the next class.